I am very excited to jump into here with my friend Philip. So,
Hello, hello. How are
hi,
you,
friend. How
Hunter?
are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me today. This is fun.
Yeah, well, I'm really, really excited to have you here. Thank you so much for being here. Can you tell me a bit about who you are, what you do, where you come from, how you ended up doing and founding Good Black Art? What the heck is it? Tell me.
All right. Well, let's I'll give you all the tea.
Oops, you got muted accidentally.
Oh, how
There we
about that?
go.
Can you hear me?
You're
Okay,
good.
we're
You're good.
back. Yes, so how did I get here? I am originally from Tennessee, born and raised, and I went to university to study marketing. I knew going in at 18, like I want to tell stories and I want to do it outside of the US. So I studied international marketing with a concentration in developing countries. And my entire career has been centered around taking legacy industries to new markets. And that's essentially what we are doing with Good Black Art in taking this old, gated, but beautiful and extremely valuable industry and making sure that as many people around the world have access to it. And I lived abroad for about 10 years, came back to the US, and that's really where my art journey started. I had no, I believe in radical transparency. I came to the US in 2017, and it was the first time working in corporate America, first time living in New York, first time being out as a queer Black man. I really only knew myself in the context of being away. So when I came
Mm,
back, a lot of those things, trauma that I ran away from, came back immediately. And I knew that creativity was always the way that I had worked through challenges, and art became that savior for me. It gave me a new language that I did not have. It allowed me to piece my nuanced journey together in a way that I did not have before coming back to the US. And I knew that I wanted it to be part of my life and I wanted to be immersed in it and I wanted to become a collector, and quickly found out that there were just so many barriers: lack of industry knowledge, the lack of access, the high cost. But I'm pretty relentless. So I got on Instagram and I started reaching out to artists directly, build relationships with them, purchase works from them. And over the course of a few years, had built a pretty significant art collection, but it was something that my partner and I did privately. We weren't one of those, couple collectors who are, in AD taking those photos or hitting all the openings. It was just something that we did as a personal endeavor. And we'd have friends and family come over and they'd be like, where did all this come from? Like, you never talked about this. And I was like, yeah,
yeah.
we're just doing it. And like many people, 2020 was a year of really figuring out what's next. What am I doing? Am I using my talents for the right purpose? And ultimately, I came to the decision that with my international background, marketing experience, and eye for art, I probably should be doing something within that industry. So I started Good Black Art really out of a need to help my friends and family connect with artists that were already in our collection.
Mm,
That was the goal. And I knew there was a need for it, but I didn't understand how big that need was. So since 2021, we started, the business has just grown and flourished at a rate which I'm still trying to catch up with, if I'm being honest. But we have e-commerce, media, and partnerships and exhibitions. And ultimately, we want to simplify the art buying process through helping people and empowering people to discover, collect, and live with art. So it's been a incredible ride, but one in which I feel is so necessary. It's the platform that I didn't have when I started. So a lot of the programs that we have are things that I always thought would be interesting to engage with. And it's been a really, really purposeful journey in helping really deepen that bond between self, art, and environments.
Mm, that's so beautiful. And thank you for sharing with your radical vulnerability earlier about your journey and your experience. And I appreciate you. So thank you for doing that.
Absolutely. Of course. It's all real.
Yeah. And it makes sense to me that you were in marketing because good black art is great. Like that, as soon as I saw that, I was like, who is that? What are we talking? This is really cool. That gets my
It's
attention
pretty
immediately.
straightforward.
Yeah, yeah. It's straightforward, but also like has intrigue. And I'm just like, yes, punchy, all the things, all the things. So tell me about so how does good black art fill the gaps in accessibility and representation within the art world, and particularly to new and underrepresented collectors?
Mhm. I always start off this response in how we started the business. We came in to the art world, and I was very clear. I'm not here to replace anything. Galleries do what they got to do. We respect them. We work with them. Love that part of the ecosystem. Arts organizations and nonprofits supporting in really incredible ways, and the institutions who preserve all of these stories in such a important way for the public. But what we want to do is expand that. And we have really three major ways of filling that gap and kind of expanding on it. The first one is education and mentorship over the transaction.
Mm.
I found like in the beginning of my journey, it was just so intimidating when you see a number with a lot of zeros. And whether you have it or not, it's just a
Yeah,
lot.
yeah.
So what we have seen, and there's a lot of data that we've collected over the past 3 years where um, new collectors, first-time collectors are engaging more when they have education, when they have mentorship, when they have support, when they have the confidence. And not only are they engaging more and buying more, they're increasing their budget as that knowledge increases. So we felt like there was such a big opportunity to start at the nucleus with new folks and grow with them
Mm,
versus trying to sell that $10,000 piece, that $5,000 piece, that $1,000 piece. It's more about building that relationship and having a long-term goal in giving that access to those new collectors. The other thing that I struggled with was I kind of think of the art ecosystem in three buckets. The media buckets, all your publications, you've got the galleries, the institutions, and then you have like the e-commerce, so like your artsy platforms. And to get certain things, you have to go to each of them. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to go to one place where I could learn, discover, and buy art in a single consolidated platform. So that is why we have those three parts of our business is we want to really meet people where they're at and along the collector journey, along the artist journey, you're always at different places. So we want to make sure that we always have a way to communicate and connect with our audience. And then the last thing, and something that I'm having a lot of fun with this year, is we've built the foundation and just getting it up and running and having the infrastructure has been really wonderful for many reasons. But we're letting our hair down this year and we're kind of diving into new conversations and really expanding the idea of what art is, but also what is collectible. We found that so many of our artists have passion points that
mm,
maybe they connected their creative practice, maybe they don't.
mm,
And a lot of the things that you're going to see us engaging with this year, whether it's with F1 and motorsports or the publishing world or the fashion space, is really having these conversations, expanding the narrative of our artists and their work, but at the same time, we're bringing in new people to the ecosystem that maybe would not have engaged with us if we were more a traditional model in the art space. So it really comes down to being where people are at and having those conversations and being consistent in listening to them.
Yeah. How do you do your own outreach and finding new artists and new collectors? And are people just coming to you now because they're hearing about you?
Well, it's evolved. In the very beginning, as I stated, it was we started the business off of the relationships that we had with artists in our collection. And as that grew, those artists would make introductions to their friends. And as the platform really took off, we had to build a formal submission process. So we are getting portfolios and applications all the time. We look at every single one, and there's a whole back end to good Black art that is supportive and a direct conversation with our artists that are that's not consumer facing. So we have artist opportunity programs. We have artist meet and greets where we're just pooling artists all from around the world. We're getting on a collective Zoom and just talking about each other's experiences and processes and creating. So um, it comes in many different forms, but I always say if you have an artist in your community, definitely have them submit their work. We always reach out, and we have a special way of connecting them to the projects that we know is going to work for them, no matter what they're creating in. So we are about to launch something in a few weeks, and the artists for that program, actually, three of the artists in that program came from that submission process that they submitted probably a year or two ago. So we never forget.
Yeah. So you've traveled the world and you lived abroad.
Mhm.
What languages do you speak?
I speak English, and I speak a little bit of Mandarin. My Mandarin should be much better. It's been now about 9 years since I lived in mainland China, but I can
Yeah.
I can get around. But it's a little shaky. But that's one thing that I need to put on my to-do list, and I'm currently learning Italian. Very beginner stage. My partner is from Bologna, and we just had a little girl. She's 3 months old.
Congratulations. What's her
Yeah, it's
name?
really exciting. So I can't let them have a secret language. So I gotta catch up. I'm a bit of a control freak.
Yeah. What's your daughter's name?
Her name is Letizia.
Letizia.
That's right.
That's so sweet. Is that Italian?
Good girl.
Is that Italian? Is that an Italian name?
Yes, it is. It's actually it was my partner's mother's name. So she's named after her grandmother.
I love that. Does it mean anything or is it just a name and
I
made a
believe
little?
it means love. But she's been a great addition, and it's been a challenge
Yeah.
balancing newborn and a business and just life in general. But I'm getting by.
Life is very lifey right now,
Ooh,
huh?
it certainly is.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Oh, I love that. You can tell I'm a baby person. I got a little watery eyed there a little bit. I love a new
They're
parent.
they're very
Um, yeah. So I would love to hear too, when you're talking about working with the artists and connecting them to the right projects and
Mhm.
potentially buyers. And you're working with maybe some artists that are new to this world. And you talked about that, that sticker shock price with all the zeros. How do you help the artists understand that maybe they could add a zero or two to a piece? Have you gone through that with people?
We do go through that often actually.
Yeah.
The easiest way that we always that we like to I would say like emerging artists are it's a huge spectrum. And that's not really talked about enough. But the easiest way that we have that conversation with them is when you are selling direct, you have a number. When you're selling through a gallery or a platform where that split is generally the 50-50, you have a different number.
Mm,
And we oftentimes give historics of what has sold on our platform, as well as our friends and other commercial institutions, but also how the market shifts and the geographic implications, the political implications of that. The timing, summer is a little rough, so maybe we try to think more about the beginning of the year for some of our big sales moments, or that kind of September moment as everyone's coming out of summer. So it really is going back to that like mentorship and education component. And a mentor of mine, Larry Osa Mensa, the first exhibition I did, he came to do a walkthrough, and he's like, Philip, you are in the business of making careers. And you are that first touch point for a lot of these artists as well as those collectors. So building that relationship is the most important thing you could possibly do. You'll always have access to work, and you'll always have access to collectors who want to support you and your artist. So we have really taking that to heart, and really try to give that guidance of um, not just selling, but the promotional aspect, the legal aspect of it, of course, the networking side of it, how to apply for grants. I mean, there are so many things that you have to think about, and we routinely talk about parallel pathing. And a lot of artists are like, I have to get to Gagosian, I have to get to Sean Kelly, I have to get to the Met or another prestigious institution, and we're down for that. But on that path, there are all these other elements that you should be doing to sustain yourself, but also to like protect your business. And you need those multiple streams of income. So we try to weave that entrepreneurial element into all of our programs, so that it gives them the tools to continue to develop as artists and as people and as businessmen and women.
mm. And on the flip side of things, how does good black art take and guide newcomers on their art buying journey? And how do you make those experiences both engaging and accessible? Because I imagine many people, like myself, maybe at some point in their life, are like, I could never collect art. That's totally inaccessible. I have to pay rent or whatever it is. Like, once they reach a certain level and they're like, oh, I'd like to do this, but I'm not really sure how or even why I should be doing this.
Mhm. We have spent a lot of time on articulating this, and the thing that I kind of always go back to on the collector side is, to your point, what is the intention? Why are you doing this? And some of the questions that we ask, even before we show artists or show work, is who are you? What are your experiences? What do you think needs to be preserved? Is something being erased right now that needs a sense of urgency to collect? What stories matter to you the most? And we always uncover just like the most interesting, incredible things. But the point of that exercise is, I believe that collecting starts within. And I want to know what your point of view is. And it is truly about like having a deeper sense of self, loving yourself, wanting to create a legacy that represents your story. And we have found so much success with that. And that goes back to the education and mentorship over the transaction. And not that galleries don't do that. I just think they have a very different function. Their function is to sell work and position artists and place works in institutions, and that is extremely valuable. But we believe that there is this greater purpose of self, that really is the nucleus to starting a collection. And I always say too, people are already collectors. It's maybe they haven't been told, whether you're into clothes or you're into coins, or you have posters, or you collect things on your travels, you're already doing it. We just try to help people be a little bit more intentional.
Mm. Who are some of those early artists for you, maybe before you even collected or purchased your first piece, but what were some of those like, oh wow, that like blew your mind open?
Oh, that's a so there's a few at very different stages of my life.
Yeah.
I remember I remember growing up, my first job was in my family's barber shop in White Plains, New York on Ferris Avenue. And
Wow.
it was my grandfather owned it. His best friend was the head barber. Then my uncle took over. But I remember a giant Ernie Barnes Sugar Shack, and just thought like the movement and the even though there was no music, I heard the music, I saw the dancing, and that was always a um, something that has stuck with me. I remember when I
Mm.
went to China, I was on a lunch break and went to a supermarket, and there was a GQ in English. So in my lunch breaks, I would go to the local supermarket and just read all the English publications. And Kende Wiley was on the cover of GQ, and I read this incredible article about him. And that was around the time that my interest in art really started. I was probably in my mid 20s. And
Mm.
then uh, coming back to the US, my connection to art, the first gallery show that I saw was a show that Nina Chanel Abbey had curated called Punch at Jeffrey Deitch on Wooster and Canal Street. And I remember walking in, and every single piece, for the first time that I've ever gone to a gallery, I understood the narrative. I could connect to what the artist was trying to say. And I remember getting that price list, and that's where all the zeros came in. And that's when I was like, there must be a few steps before these artists get to Jeffrey Deitch.
Yeah.
So many moments in my life that I didn't necessarily always know that it would be setting me up for this, but are certainly moments that were formative.
Mm. Oh, I love that. I love hearing all of that. How do you feel the by collecting art, supporting artists, learning about new artists that you're facilitating for folks? What sense of community does this build? Because like you said, it goes beyond transactional, but it is a purchase. So what is that balance between the business side of it and the community building aspect?
Mm, I could answer this and talk about this for a long, long time.
Yeah, so we need another half an
And
hour at least.
for sure. I- the simplest way that I look at it, and I do have this conversation on a daily basis in very different scenarios. Is that collecting art is on a spectrum. And you got folks who just buy whatever they love, and then you have people who are like, that is a very specific artist from a very specific gallery, and I'm gonna get that for a investment purpose. Um, I have my own personal views about where you should be on that spectrum. But my thinking is anyone who walks in our doors, anyone who comes in our platform, anyone who sees the content that we create or purchases or work from us should be able to have the tools to navigate any of those situations. And we do have collectors who just buy what they love and do not care about the market. And we have cultivated some really fantastic up and coming collectors, or are already established. And that's always fantastic too. And we like to be that plug. There's a lot of established collectors are um, uh, who don't have their ear to the ground quite like we do, and finding that new talent, or like good black art, those all their kids grow up and do really great things. And then again, on the other side, They're just happy to support our artists and live with their work. So we like to create all those different those entry points because it will change, right? Like there's some people who just buy a bunch of art all the time, but maybe 2 or 3 years later, they're just going to take a break. It doesn't mean they don't love art. It doesn't mean they don't want to support artists, but maybe they're in a phase that they're taking a break. Maybe they're moving. Maybe they're um, going through personal challenges. So they want to just engage with art and learn about art and engage with our content. So having that flexibility with all of our different expertise is comes in handy in that scenario.
Mm. We only have a couple minutes left. Is there anything
Mhm.
we haven't touched on that you want to make sure we do before we wrap up?
I would just say that if I believe that everyone has a relationship with art, whether you were a kid who loved to draw, or there's someone in your family who is an artist, or you enjoy album covers. I
Mhm.
think that art is really the center of the universe. The stories that it represents is always will always transcend through time. I encourage people to learn more and engage more. You can follow us. We're on Instagram quite a bit, doing a lot of really cool things. So our handle is at Good Black Art. We love art. We love our artists, and we really enjoy telling stories. So there's something for everybody.
I love it. I love it. And if people want to submit, they go to your website, I imagine. Yeah.
There's a little artist tab with all the directions.
Amazing. Amazing. And what's the best way to keep the conversation going with you? Should they follow Good Black Art? Is there a way to reach out to you?
There is. I'm pretty accessible. I am on LinkedIn, Phillip Collins. My handle on IG is Philip Michael Collins. Any of those platforms, you're going to get different takes on what we're doing. So feel free to follow all of them. We've got a
Awesome.
really exciting year coming up.
I'm looking forward to seeing it. And you're in New York City, you said?
I am in New York. So our studio is downtown on Green Street, and then our office is on Mercer at the Mullen. So we're just going back and forth between downtown and hitting all the galleries that have moved from Chelsea to Tribeca. So
Yeah.
very downtown crew.
Oh, very cool. I'm up in Astoria, so I'll have to come down and visit.
Lovely. Yes. You have the best food neighborhood.
That's right. Yes, we do. Yes, we
You
do.
really do.
And yet I still eat at the same five places over and over again. I become such a homebody in that way.
Good. It's all good. It's all good. No judgment here.
Well, Philip, thank you so much for making the time today. This was absolutely a joy to talk with you. Thank you for what you're doing, and I hope we get to do it again. Come on back.
I'm down. I'm down. And good luck with the rest of the day. And I can't wait to hear everyone else's stories. Some really incredible people. So you've got a cool job today.
I really do. I'm
You
very
really do.
grateful and very lucky that I get to talk to all the best people. So thank you for being one of them.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. We'll see you later.
See you later, Philip. Thank you.